The moment my sister stood up in court and said, "She gets nothing," I felt every eye in that room turn toward me. I was 30 years old, sitting alone, listening to my own family erase me like I never existed. She sounded confident. She sounded certain. But she forgot one thing. The judge was not looking at her. The judge was looking at me. And in that silent pause, everything changed. What happened next did not just shock my sister. It changed my life forever in a way no one in that courtroom expected. Before we continue, tell me where you are watching from. Drop your state in the comments. I always love seeing how far these stories travel across America. My name is Rachel. I am 30 years old, and until that day in court, I believed family always meant fairness. I was wrong. I grew up believing my sister was stronger than me. She was 3 years older, louder, more confident, and always knew how to control a room. When we were children in Ohio, she spoke and people listened. I stayed quiet and observed. My parents used to say we balanced each other. I believed that for a long time. When our father passed away 2 years ago, everything shifted. He owned a small but successful construction company outside Columbus. It was not a huge corporation, but it was valuable. He also owned the house we grew up in and several pieces of land. I never thought about inheritance. I cared more about keeping peace. My sister cared about control. After the funeral, she stepped into the role of organizer. She handled the paperwork, spoke to the attorneys, and told everyone she would make sure things were fair. I trusted her. I was grieving. I did not ask questions because I believed we were a team. Months passed. I received almost no updates. Whenever I asked, she said everything was complicated and under review. She would smile and tell me not to worry. She said, "You know I will take care of you." I wanted to believe her. Then I started hearing whispers from relatives. An aunt mentioned that my sister had been meeting privately with the estate lawyer. A cousin told me he heard my sister was planning to take over the company fully. When I asked her directly, she laughed softly and said people loved drama. She told me I was overthinking. I felt uneasy for the first time. I was 30 years old, not a child. I had my own job in marketing. I paid my own bills. But suddenly I felt small again, like I was 12 and she was deciding what I was allowed to know. One evening, I drove by our father's office building. The company sign was still there, but something was different. Her name had been added underneath his. Not both of our names, only hers. My heart dropped. I had never agreed to that. When I confronted her, she said it was temporary. She claimed it was easier for business licensing. She told me I did not understand how these things worked. The way she said it made me question myself. Then the official court date for the estate hearing was set. That was when she stopped pretending. A week before the hearing, she invited me to coffee. She looked calm and composed. She said it would be better if I did not expect much. She told me Dad trusted her more with financial decisions. She said I had my own career and did not need the company. I asked her directly if she was planning to cut me out. She looked at me with steady eyes and said, "It is complicated." That was when I realized something was very wrong. I went home that night and opened every old email from my father. I reread every message. I started searching for anything I might have missed. I did not know it yet, but the truth had been sitting quietly in my inbox for almost a year. The night I began searching through my old emails, I was not looking for revenge. I was looking for reassurance. I wanted proof that my father saw me, valued me, remembered me. I did not expect to find something that would change everything. As I scrolled back almost a year before his passing, I found an email with the subject line, "Important, just in case." I had not opened it before. It was sent late at night. In it, my father explained that he had updated certain documents regarding the company and the property. He wrote that he wanted both of his daughters protected equally, but he also wrote something else. He said leadership should go to the one who showed consistency and integrity, not just confidence. Attached to that email was a scanned document. It was not the final will, but it was a signed letter of intent addressed to his attorney. In it, he clearly stated that ownership of the construction company would be split evenly between my sister and me. However, operational control would remain shared unless one party attempted to remove the other unfairly. In that case, a specific clause would activate. That clause required a judicial review of private communications and financial behavior during the estate process. My hands were shaking as I read it. I was not a lawyer, but I understood enough to know that this was important. Why had the attorney never mentioned this? Why had my sister acted as if everything belonged to her? The next morning, I called the law office directly. I asked for a copy of the official will on file. The receptionist hesitated, then told me they would need to confirm my identity. 2 days later, I received the document. The will did divide assets equally. There was no line that said I would receive nothing. But there was one detail that caught my attention. The will referenced an updated operational agreement for the company, filed separately. I had never seen that agreement. My sister had never mentioned it. At that moment, the pieces started forming a pattern. She was not lying about the inheritance itself. She was controlling the narrative around the business. I decided not to confront her again before court. Instead, I forwarded my father's email and the attached letter to a different attorney for independent review. I did not want conflict. I wanted clarity. The new attorney called me within hours. He told me the clause in that letter could become very powerful if someone attempted to misrepresent the estate publicly. He asked me one direct question. Had my sister claimed in writing or in front of witnesses that I would receive nothing? I told him about the coffee meeting. I told him about the relatives hearing the same message. He paused, then said something I will never forget. He said documentation and statements in court matter more than private conversations. That was when I understood. If she declared in court that I had no claim, she would trigger the exact clause my father had prepared, and the judge would be required to review everything. I did not know if she would go that far, but I had a feeling she would. The morning of the court hearing, I woke up before sunrise. I felt calm in a way that surprised me. For weeks I had carried anxiety in my chest, but that day it was different. I was not walking into court to fight my sister. I was walking in with the truth. The courtroom in downtown Columbus felt colder than I expected. My sister arrived with confidence. She wore a tailored suit and carried a thick folder. She barely looked at me. When she did, her expression was steady, almost rehearsed. Relatives filled the back rows quietly. I could feel their curiosity. When the hearing began, the judge reviewed the basic details of the estate. Everything sounded straightforward: equal division of property, standard procedures. I almost wondered if I had misunderstood everything. Then it was my sister's turn to speak. She stood up smoothly and addressed the court. She explained that she had been managing the company operations for over a year. She said she had taken full responsibility during our father's illness. Her voice was calm and controlled. Then she said the sentence that made the room shift. She said, "My sister has no operational claim. She gets nothing from the company itself." The words landed like a stone in water. The room became very still. I felt my pulse in my ears, but I did not move. I did not interrupt. I did exactly what my attorney advised. I waited. The judge looked down at the documents in front of him. Then he looked up, not at her, at me. It was not anger in his expression. It was focus. He asked her to clarify what she meant by nothing. She repeated herself. She said I was not involved in the business and had no legal standing in operations. That was when my attorney stood up. Calmly, respectfully, he requested that the court review the letter of intent referenced in the will and the clause regarding misrepresentation or unilateral operational control. He handed over the printed email from my father, including the signed attachment. The judge read silently for what felt like forever. The courtroom was so quiet that I could hear someone shifting in their seat behind me. Then the judge asked a simple question. He asked whether any attempt had been made to remove one beneficiary from operational rights without judicial review. My sister hesitated. For the first time that morning, Her confidence flickered. She began explaining that she was only trying to protect the business, but the judge interrupted gently. He said the language in the clause was clear. Any public claim that one daughter had no operational right would activate immediate review of internal communications and management conduct. I watched as the color drained from her face. She had not expected that letter. She had not expected that I would stay silent long enough for her own words to matter. The judge ordered a temporary pause on operational changes and requested a full review of company decisions made since our father's passing. He stated clearly that both daughters held equal rights unless evidence suggested otherwise. When he finished speaking, he looked at me again. This time there was something different in his expression. It felt like acknowledgement, not sympathy, not favoritism, just recognition. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. I had not won anything yet, but I had not been erased. After the hearing, the courtroom slowly emptied. Relatives avoided eye contact with both of us. My sister gathered her papers quickly. She did not speak to me. For the first time in my life, she did not control the ending of the conversation. The judicial review took several weeks. During that time, the court examined internal emails, financial transfers, management decisions, and communication with employees. I did not celebrate. I went back to work and lived my normal life. I did not want drama. I wanted fairness. When the findings were presented, the results were not explosive or dramatic. They were simple and clear. The review showed that my sister had acted without consulting me on several operational changes. She had attempted to register herself as sole managing director without formal consent. There was no fraud. There was no criminal behavior. But there was clear overreach. The judge finalized the ruling shortly after. Ownership of the construction company would remain equally divided. Operational control would require joint agreement. Major decisions would need signatures from both of us. A neutral financial advisor would monitor large transactions for the first year to ensure transparency. When the judge read the final order, he said something that stayed with me. He said that estates do not only distribute assets, they reveal character. He encouraged cooperation, but he emphasized accountability. Outside the courthouse, my sister finally spoke to me. Her voice was lower than usual. She said she thought she was protecting the company. She admitted she believed I would eventually sell my share. I told her calmly that she never asked what I wanted. That was the truth. She assumed I was passive because I had always been quiet. She confused silence with weakness. Over the next few months, something unexpected happened. We started meeting weekly to review company reports together. The first meetings were tense. We disagreed often. But slowly, the dynamic shifted. She began asking for my opinion before making decisions. I began speaking up without hesitation. I realized that the courtroom was not where I truly found my voice. It was the preparation before it. It was the moment I chose to read that email instead of ignoring my doubts. It was the decision to stay calm when she said, "She gets nothing." I am still 30 years old. I am still the quieter sister, but I am not invisible. The company now reflects both of us. Our father's name remains on the building, and under it are two names, side by side. Looking back, the most powerful moment was not when the judge paused the hearing. It was when he looked at me, and I did not look away. In that silent exchange, I understood something important. Fairness does not always shout. Sometimes it waits patiently until the truth speaks for itself. If you are ever sitting in a room where someone tries to define your worth, remember this. You do not have to raise your voice to change the outcome. You only have to know your value and stand still long enough for it to be seen.